Okay. Hmm. Kalimera, Maria. I think that's all I know in Greek. A couple of more words. Hello. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rimmer, for introducing me. I'm very happy to be here today to share my research with you, with all of you guys, and I'm really happy to see people from all over the place. So let's get started. As you know from the title, my presentation will be about the the role of teacher manuals in pronunciation teaching. And this is my major research for the last 2 years, which I like working on. So before I get started, let me introduce myself to you a bit. My name is Sinem, and I'm from Turkey. So I'm a non-native English speaking teacher. I am doing a PhD degree in Applied Linguistics and Technology program at Iowa State University in the US, and I'm getting closer to be done. And I really like pronunciation teaching and pronunciation research, I guess, just like all of you guys. Also, I'm the editorial assistant of Journal of Second Language Pronunciation. You should check it if you haven't already. It's a really nice journal, including lots of pronunciation papers. Before I move on with the presentation, I would like to thank to IATEFL Pronunciation Special Interest Group because they gave me this great opportunity to share my research. I especially would like to thank Dr. Rimmer, Dr. Selman, and Dr. Atkins, who really helped me throughout this process. Okay, so let's get started. I know that this is a webinar and interactive environment, so I would love to start with some questions before I move on to my own presentation. So I know each of you have a different story about pronunciation teaching. So I would like to ask you, how did you start pronunciation teaching? So if you could give me your answers from the chat box, I'll share it with all of you. Nice guess. So how was your story? How did you start pronunciation teaching? Using songs with young learners. Okay, nice. Were you teaching to young learners, Dr. Rimmer? Okay, followed Headway pronunciation books. Yes, I've heard about that book a lot of times. Discovering Articulatory Approach. Okay, nice. So is there anyone who just thinks that I ended up teaching pronunciation, but I really liked it? From teaching books and materials. Oh, you majored in phonetics and phonology. Nice. Pronunciation club. Cool. So we all are kind of really interested in pronunciation. So when I was interviewing a lot of people, I saw some people saying, I love pronunciation since the beginning of my career. Some of them said I was the only person to teach it, so I somehow ended up teaching it. And some of them said, I ended up with teaching pronunciation, but I really liked it. So we all have different stories about pronunciation teaching. Some of us are native English speaking teachers, some of us are non-native teachers, so we had different journeys, different stories. So when you think about your first time teaching pronunciation, what is the biggest challenge for you? What do you remember? What kind of difficulties did you have? Let's see, the difficulties of you so far, or when you first started teaching pronunciation. Okay, your accent is not the one in the books. Yes, I have heard that from a couple of participants, especially from people who speaks a different dialect, like Scottish accent. Okay, I was told I had a nice accent. Okay, nice. How to move the speech organs. Yes, this is something that a lot of people find difficult because there are also technical terms that some people hate to use. Limitation of listen and repeat, getting students' attention. Exactly, large classes. Explain the symbols. Yes, this is very hard for many teachers. IPA chart is very challenging at the beginning for novice teachers especially. Blended speech of native speakers, connected speech, yes. Students are shy, not self-confident, and you know what? Teachers sometimes are not confident either, so we have this issue too, which we will cover in a couple of minutes. Hard to integrate into flow of the lesson. Yes, that's another common problem that we hear from a lot of teachers. And to explain the differences between the Polish and the English sounds. Yes, so explaining the differences between our own languages. So my last question will be, before I move on, is what sources did you use? I mean, if you ended up with teaching pronunciation or you really wanted to teach pronunciation teaching and that was your major, whatever your story is, what kind of sources did you use when you were given a pronunciation class to teach? Where did you start? Let's see the sources. Headway pronunciation series, yes. Mark's pronunciation games, yes, I've heard about those a lot. Those are really mentioned a lot by both native and non-native English speaking teachers, and you'll see them soon. I had a syllabus. Okay, so where did you get the syllabus? Did you create your own syllabus, or were you given a syllabus by someone or your professor? Old marks, oh, that's this. Okay, nice. Yes, see, this is something that all of us do. If you're novice teachers, sometimes we like following a book. We like a syllabus which was prepared for us based on a book or something else. So we needed some help, right? Especially when we were novice teachers. It doesn't really matter whether we were native teachers or non-native teachers. Some of us had confidence issues because of being a non-native English speaking teacher, or some of us, although they were native teachers, had lack of confidence because they didn't have training in it, or it's really hard to teach. And Baker, sheep or sheep, yes, I created my own syllabus. Good job, right? This is really hard, especially if you're a novice teacher. Fab books, Mark, right? Okay, so thank you so much. So I'll walk you through my adventure, the way that I started teaching pronunciation. In this webinar, what I want you to learn about or to think about is pronunciation teaching books and web-based teaching materials. And I also will show you what I'm developing for teachers like us, teachers of little experience or teachers of a lot of experience. It doesn't matter. It's just thinking of all types of teachers, different types of teachers. And you'll also see an online teacher's manual that I try to create for all types of teachers. And it looks like something like this. This is an online teacher's manual, a web-based material. And you have some segmental, suprasegmental units, as well as videos, vowel chart, consonant chart. It basically looks like this, the student material and teacher's material next to each other, and an interactive IPA or consonant chart. So this is kind of giving an idea about what you're going to see in the next couple of minutes. But let me tell you how I started with this thing, with this teacher's manuals. So 3 years ago in 2013, I was part of a research study, and I was teaching a pronunciation class with another friend of mine. She and I were teaching two intact classes, two groups of learners. So we were looking at the effects of teachers' language background on L2 learners' comprehensibility and accentedness. So we wanted to see if teachers' background would affect their comprehensibility or accentedness. For this, we taught two intact group of learners for 8 weeks. And every week we met with Dr. Levis, because he was helping us how to do this, and we were discussing how things were going. Also, we used the same teaching materials for this course, and the materials were prepared by Dr. Levis, so we were telling him how we were interacting with the materials. What I realized during this study, a lot of time to prepare for this class, because I had no experience before, and I had never taught pronunciation before that. So I was looking at the materials really carefully, student materials or teacher's manual, and I took a lot of notes. You should have seen my notes, my pages, exercise pages. My native English speaking friend's notes, this is a screenshot from one of the exercises that she did in class, and this is the student materials. As you can see, she had no notes on her exercise. Like, no answers are marked, there's no phonetic transcriptions, nothing whatsoever. But when you look at the same exercise from my side of the view, like, you would see that I marked the answers, I just put the phonetic transcriptions, and I sometimes wrote the definition of some words in either L1 in Turkish or in English sometimes, as in this case. So I said, okay, we are really different from each other. This might be my personality or my experience. So this makes me spend a lot of time. Would there be something to help me? Or can there be more stuff in the teacher's manuals? But I need more stuff. I need more guidance, because this is not enough. So there will be times that I would ask Dr. Levis to add more stuff to the materials, because they were not enough for me to get through the lesson sometimes. So this is how I started this, because I said, okay, apparently teachers look for additional support to teach pronunciation. They might go to resource books, but my research and literature also shows that teachers do not really use the resource books that we use in pronunciation methodology classes. But rather than that, they go to web-based materials. A lot of teachers told me that they primarily go to YouTube videos or videos like, or websites like youglish or online dictionaries for non-native English speaking teachers. So I said, okay, apparently teachers, especially different types of teachers, depending on their experience, their language background, their confidence, competence, they need different types of support. So can I provide this support for teachers? Or what would I want an author to do for me to be supported enough? So I said maybe an online teacher's manual would help, because pronunciation includes a lot of listening, a lot of seeing what's going on, while producing the sound. So I said, okay, if I can produce something like this, maybe it would support teachers and they would use the teacher's manual as a guidance rather than only an answer key. Yeah, English is really favorite. You're right. So I have another question. I want to make a post here. Do you guys use a teacher's manual when you use a standalone pronunciation book? Or it doesn't matter, it could be an oral communication skills book. Do you check if there's a teacher's manual, or how often do you use them? For me, I use it all the time when I taught that course that I mentioned to you before. Rarely, okay. Dr. Kolva, was that the case when you were really a novice teacher too, or is it because you're experienced right now? Okay, there isn't a teacher's manual with published pronunciation materials, just some instructions? Yes, that's a good point. There are not really teacher manuals most of the time. There are for some books, a couple of them. I have access to them. Like Clear Speech or Revolve said, they have a teacher's manual. Okay, don't have teacher books, okay. So do you guys mostly check if there's a teacher's manual, the ones who said there's no teacher's manual? Integrated with skills. Okay. Okay, so that's a good point. So you're an experienced teacher. This was what I figured out in my research with experienced teachers. They mostly said what to do now, but when they were novice teachers, maybe they needed some guidance at some point. Depends on the class. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Clear Speech, Mark's Authentic Listening Book. Okay, agree with Jane. Okay, let's see what Jane said. There isn't a teacher's manual. Yes, so that's one of the common problems. Most of the people say there's no teacher's manual. And even if there's a teacher's manual, it seems like not everybody is integrating them well enough. It may be partly because people perceive teacher manuals as an answer key rather than a guidance, and it might be because of the way that they are designed. Novice teachers are usually the most reluctant to teach pronunciation. That's true. So I was not reluctant to teach when I was taking part in that research study. I was really willing to do that, but I was really shy a little bit to do this at the beginning, and I didn't have as much confidence as I do have now, 3 years ago, for sure. Okay, so what are your expectations from a teacher's manual? If you see that there's a teacher's manual, what do you expect to see when you open the book? Would you just check it for the answers, or do you kind of look for some more information? Yeah, native teachers are sometimes reluctant too, and you'll see why in a couple of minutes. Clear instructions and guidance, this is true. Detailed step-by-step procedure, that's very true, especially again for less experienced teachers. Something to bring the activity off the page. Fun and games, this is, yeah, that's a good point. Lots of people mentioned that before in my research. Audio. Okay, so audio was one of the things that I heard a lot because people seem to be really sick of installing a CD or downloading audio files. And this is something really easy that you can do easily in today's technological advancements. Okay, so what I did for my research, thank you so much for all the answers. Now you'll see the opinions of other teachers, and some of you are included in my research. So for my research, I interviewed and also surveyed 19 non-native English speaking teachers and 25 native English speaking teachers. And some of you already participated in this study. Thank you so much. And they made really, these teachers gave me really good ideas, valuable ideas. Generally, my teachers, the teachers in my study, they were teaching at a college or university level, and I had different people of various experience. Some of them were really novice teachers, really reluctant, as you said. Some of them were really like, I can't do this, but I have to do it, so I had to do it. I just figured out a way. But most of the teachers, which took my attention, is that they rated their knowledge and confidence in pronunciation teaching very high in my study. So I was really surprised. So most of them were the people who liked really teaching pronunciation, and most of them thought they were pretty good at teaching pronunciation. But one common thing I think, which is not going to be surprising for you, was that a lot of them, including native and non-native English-speaking teachers, said they found suprasegmental features harder to teach. So some of them said, I just don't know how to deal with suprasegmentals. Again, as I said, including both native and non-native teachers. So when I asked them what makes pronunciation teaching challenging for them, they said, teaching priorities. I don't know what to teach, what to start. Well, is there a linear order, or should I teach only a couple of features for a specific group of learners? So they wanted a teacher's manual to say how to prioritize the features. Or teachers said, presentation of pronunciation features is sometimes hard for me. They said it's hard to introduce topics. Some of them said they didn't know how to start on a topic, how to introduce it. And assessment and feedback, some of the teachers, especially some native English speaking teachers, said that they had really big difficulties when they first started teaching. They didn't know how to analyze their learner's speech, so that made it really difficult. Also, they didn't know how to listen to them so that they could give feedback to their learners. And also there are some pronunciation features which are really hard for any teacher, obviously, because I heard this from a lot of teachers in my study. Just like as Yaroslava said, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name here, they need to be convinced that intonation really matters. Yes, intonation matters, and a lot of teachers said that intonation is really hard for them to teach and introduce. So they were really scared of intonation, both native and non-native teachers. And the fact that there are lots of different L1s, especially in an ESL setting, they didn't know how to listen for the difficulties of different learners and how to address all of those in one class. Different proficiency levels of students in one class, especially in EFL settings, and training. Lots of teachers said that unfortunately they didn't really have pronunciation pedagogy training at the beginning, so they had to teach themselves. Also, I also heard a lot of self-perception issues from especially non-native English speaking teachers. Like they didn't think that they would be appropriate model to teach pronunciation. So, for instance, a lot of teachers, as I mentioned before, a lot of teachers talked about intonation. So one of my non-native English speaking teachers said, every now and then my intonation is a bit off, so if I cannot produce myself, that makes it harder to teach. If students come up with a question I don't know, I might be tempted to make up an answer which is not 100% accurate. So I can see that this might have happened to a lot of us, especially when we were novice. But clearly this is not what we would want to do in a class, right? So we don't want to make up an answer. But this is what happens if we kind of feel maybe insecure, but we think that we need to make up an answer, so we're not quite sure, but there were times that we made up an answer. This might be the case for some teachers. But this is not only the case for a non-native English speaking teacher. There was a native English speaking teacher in my study who said, the only thing I struggle with a little bit is intonation. It's not my friend, and I can hear it reasonably well. I don't spend much time on it. I remember my conversation with this teacher really well. She said she really can hear, but she can't really teach it. So she said, I just keep it really short. So this is also not something we want to do. We don't want to skip a topic just because we don't know how to teach it. So it's really hard to give intonation rules. Yes, intonation is really hard. So it was mentioned a lot. And a couple of teachers also said research says different things. Research gives lots of different ways to teach intonation, so she was confused about how to teach it. There are other comments of the teachers. So this one was about the self-perception of a non-native English speaking teacher, a confidence issue. She said, mainly because of non-native English speaker speech, I'm stuck with myself. Since I cannot enunciate like a native speaker does, I'm not confident to teach my students. So, yes, there's also a big discussion about whether intonation can be taught or not at all. So, in this part, you can see that there's a confidence issue. So we saw that some pronunciation features are hard to teach. Some teachers do not have confidence. So I asked these teachers the use of textbook in their pronunciation teaching. So as you can see, 70% of teachers, approximately 70% in each group, they said that they use a standalone pronunciation book. And most of the time, half of the teachers choose their books by themselves, and some of the institution or by their course coordinator, or they just use the book that their professor used. So professors have an impact on their students as well in that sense. But we can see that most of the people use a pronunciation book to teach. So what types of materials do you guys use now to teach pronunciation, especially the experienced ones? When you go to class, you still use a book, and supplement it with other materials, or do you just combine your own materials, bring together different things? What do you do? Create your own, okay. So where do you find the materials to create your own, Joanna? Sounding better. YouTube lectures. That's a good point. There are lots of people using YouTube lectures. Combine my own online mixed with my own stuff. Yes, you have a very, very nice website that I know all of too. Speech in Action by Dr. Caldwell. Course books have a lot of exercises. Yes, and also I think another point, even if you want to use the exercises from different books, you need to have a good command of how to teach this. You need to understand how this works so that you can bring them together nicely. Chinese medicine theory. Oh, nice. Link colors and healing sounds. Okay. Clips from comedies to create a positive atmosphere. Right. Okay. So as far as I can see, lots of you use books and web-based materials. So this was the case for lots of teachers in my study too. So I'm going to show you the name of 21 pronunciation teaching books. When I asked my teachers in my study what books they use, they mostly named these books. And these 4 books were named by both native and non-native English speakers a lot. So Clear Speech, Well Said, Sheep and Sheep pronunciation games. Especially Sheep and Sheep is really popular in EFL settings in Europe, and Clear Speech for the US. And all of these books, like Headway Pronunciation, I heard a lot of times, Accurate English, or Pronouncing American English, Advanced English Pronunciation, all of those are the books that teachers name. So we might think that there are not many books in pronunciation teaching, but actually there are 21 of those here. And I'm sure there are still books which haven't been mentioned by someone in my group. But later on, you can look at this list more carefully and you can see some other books that you haven't maybe figured out before. I also asked my teachers, my participants, what kind of web-based sources they use. So again, both native English speaking teachers and non-native English speaking teachers, they mentioned University of Iowa's website because they introduce how the sounds are produced. English Accent Coach by Ron Thompson in Canada, they mentioned this source a lot too. And Hancock McDonald's website, youglish.com, Speech Accent Archive, or Dialects of English, ESL activities. I think some of you mentioned this before too. Interactive IPA charts of IPA Association. Online dictionaries a lot. Also some videos like NPR videos, Rachel's English on YouTube, other YouTube lectures, and TED Talks were mentioned a lot by both groups of teachers as well. So when I asked them why they use these videos, they gave me some reasons for that. So they say some teachers use it for practice purposes in class. So they have their students watch the video, read the transcript, and do some exercises with that. And some of them use the videos to introduce pronunciation features to students. So they said they use the videos in their class for their students to understand how something works in pronunciation. Some of them do use the videos for shadowing practices. Some of them use them for providing speech samples from native speakers, especially if they're a non-native English speaking teacher. And some native English speaking teachers said they use the videos to expose their students to different regional dialects. So that's their purpose, why they use the videos. So I want to share some of the ideas of teachers. Maybe you can relate yourself to some of these. One of my native English speaking teachers said, Rachel's English, I feel like she's someone who knows what she's talking about. For instance, I'll send my students to her videos rather than making my own video saying the same thing as she is. So if you trust the video, the person teaching in the video, you clearly can use it in class as some teachers did it. And another teacher, though, yes, Kitty Cat is the nickname in the, right. So one of the native English speaking teachers said, though, we need to be careful about the videos, especially on YouTube, because she said, I was looking at some really awful stuff on the internet, and I was looking at how many views there had been. Like some of these are over 1 million views and like 10,000 likes. And this person, whose nickname is Chloe, is a very experienced pronunciation teacher and researcher. I'm sure most of you know her. So she wanted to be a little bit cautious about that. She said, we need to make sure that those videos are reliable, the information being presented as a reliable source. So online dictionaries was another story because, as you can see in this table, non-native English speaking teachers used online dictionaries a lot. And I remember myself using them a lot because sometimes there would be words which I have never heard before in the materials that I was teaching with. So I would just go ahead and check their pronunciation, check their phonetic transcription, word stress patterns, because if I don't know those, I honestly do not feel secure to go to class, because what if somebody asks me how to say those words or where the word stress is, especially if I'm teaching word stress. So when I asked the teachers how often they use the online dictionaries, as you can see, lots of teachers said, especially non-native teachers, to check how the word is written in phonetic symbols, to list symbols, to listen to the pronunciation of a word. Okay, so native English speaking teachers use the videos, the online dictionaries as well, but not as often as non-native English speaking teachers. So I also asked teachers, okay, what do you expect from a teacher's manual? If I told you that I can create something, maybe I can try creating something, what do you want me to put in it? So lots of them said, I want guidance. Guidance was a big category that I had. And by guidance, they mean I want to see the theory of the language. What is the theory? And Judy Gilbert's Clear Speech is accompanied a booklet. It really explains really well the theory of the language, for instance, she's following, the approach that she's following. They want to have some guidance about what to teach, how to teach, because a lot of teachers said, I just don't know how to introduce this, especially like topics like word stress, intonation, where do I start, what do you do, what do I do? Some of them said, I want methodological advice, I want additional exercises, not only the exercises that I would use in class, but also the ones that students do not have in their book, so if I need additional stuff, I can bring some to the class. Some teachers said I want help for assessment, like diagnostic stuff. How do I diagnose my students' problems? And some of them, especially a couple of non-native English speaking teachers, said, I need help for terminology. Because I remember one of the teachers in my study said, I hate those fricative affricate terms, so I want to know what those are. I don't remember what they were, so I don't like teaching pronunciation sometimes if it includes those things. So maybe if there are terminology that you use in your book, providing the meanings of those would be helpful for them and clearly explaining. Also, students' difficulties, like the specific problems that certain L1 backgrounds have, they also looked for this kind of information. Okay, so also, by the way, in the chat box, we see the names of really good books, so check it out. You may find out some really good resources. Another category that I had was technology. A lot of teachers said, I do not want to download or install anything to my computer for audio. So is it possible that it's just there? Click and play. And some people said, I want videos, instructional videos, because some of the teachers said, yes, I find really helpful videos on YouTube, but I sometimes cannot tell if this is correct, if this is reliable or not. So if a pronunciation book, a student's material, is accompanied by videos for teachers that they can trust, prepared by experts or prepared by pronunciation researchers, teachers, then I would trust those and I would watch them. It would be helpful for me. Or videos in which an expert is analyzing pronunciation problems of learners, because remember, some teachers said, I don't know how to analyze learner problems. So if somebody shows me how to analyze those, that would be helpful. And some of them said teacher training videos. So yes, English videos are really good for pronunciation, but we just need to know if they're reliable or not, right? So videos, teacher training videos, we don't mean that a teacher's manual is supposed to train teachers. That's not my intention. What I'm saying is that, and also what these teachers wished for, was just a little bit support, which would support their ongoing education, ongoing training, like in-service training. So also they wanted some links to outside sources so that they wouldn't need to look for those, but they would be shown some sources. Yes, Dr. Gilbert, her book, it's really great. I have it. I really liked it. That was one of the clear booklets showing what the student book is doing. So those kinds of booklets we need. Also, I just asked teachers a couple of questions about their expectations from a teacher's manual accompanying pronunciation books. So as you can see, native and non-native English speaking teachers had different ratings here. So providing the pronunciation of important words in audio format is rated really high by non-native English speaking teachers. This is out of 5. So 5 is strongly agree. They just rated these on a Likert scale survey item. And native English speaking teachers providing brief information on the differences of English varieties used in the book. So a lot of native English speaking teachers said, I want to hear different people speak in English. So non-native English speaking teachers were looking for native speaker speech, and native English speaking teachers were looking for some other varieties. So they all have different needs and expectations. So when I asked them about the audio component of a teacher's manual, a non-native English speaking teacher said, well, currently 188 booklets, the name of the course they were teaching, have some audio samples, but there are some missing audio files. In that case, I had to create by myself by approaching my friends. The same teacher also says, I also need reference for myself. I'm not a native English speaker, so I may not know how to pronounce. So this teacher did not really feel confident to provide pronunciation model by herself. So she said whenever she didn't have the relevant audio file, she would go to a native speaker friend so that she could record the sound file. So people may have different issues for being reluctant to teach this. A native English speaking teacher said, I use outside materials in my classes, outside audio materials. I'm really keen on like attainable targets. So the idea is I don't want and I don't expect, it's reasonable for my, I want them to have models that make them feel, oh, I can totally do this. So this is a really nice perspective too. So a native English speaking teacher says, I want non-native English speaking speech samples too, audio samples, so that they can hear that it's intelligible, so they can do it. Other features that teachers mentioned that they want in a teacher's manual was a phonetic chart. And if we're talking about technology integration, we can create an interactive chart. They talk about layout, friendly design, and cross-referencing. A lot of teachers said it's really hard to find the student materials matching part in the teacher's manual. So where is this thing? It takes time for me. Or answer key for exercises or authentic context. So now when we look at the problems with teachers' manuals, common problems, not many teachers use them. And because most of the time some teachers take them as only answer keys to the exercises in the book. That's one of the reasons that some people do not use them. And some people think that there are not teachers' manuals. And I've seen some teachers, I talked to some teachers saying that there was no teacher's manual for their book, but actually there is. So maybe we're not even sometimes aware that there's a teacher's manual for the book. But why do we not know about that? Because mostly teacher manuals are additional costs for publication houses, and they do not really advertise them either, and not all of them are really keen on producing really good pronunciation teacher's manuals. Accessibility, therefore, is an issue. So do we have access to those? And again, cross-referencing, lack of guidance. A lot of teachers said, I don't find any guidance in the teacher's manual. And since I already know the answers, why do I need the teacher's manual if there's no additional guidance in that? And not updatable, because once you create a teacher's manual, you cannot really update it. And some teachers said, if I see one single mistake in the teacher's manual, I lose my confidence. It's not credible for me anymore. Maybe it's normal to have mistakes in any printed material or online material, but there are some people who do not really like seeing those. Yes, teacher's manual, teacher's book, that's a different thing, yes. So now I would like you to see what I created for my research study, and it's an online teacher's manual. It's called Pronunciation for a Purpose. What I would want to say first is it's not a commercial product. It's something that I created for my research, just to see if the teacher's manual can help teachers a little bit or not, or how do they like it. So that was the purpose. This is not created to sell something or so. So it's an online teacher's manual accompanying an unpublished book developed by John Levis and Greta Mueller-Levis. So this was their student material, and they kindly allowed me to use their material to base my online teacher's manual on. And I use it as my main material for my research. So, by the way, I would love to thank them for letting me use their materials, because otherwise it would be double work for me to create the material and move it to online environment. So, let me show you what I did. based on the teacher's expectations and their feedback. So I had already created an online teacher's manual by the time I interviewed a lot of teachers, but they gave me lots of feedback, so I just improved it based on their feedback. So in my online teacher's manual, you see the student material on the left-hand side, and you see the teacher's manual on the right-hand side. So these are accordion boxes. Teachers may just click on any of those boxes and open an exercise, or they can just go ahead and open the teacher's manual content. Just like this. So if you click exercise 8, you see the content of the student material. This is what the students are seeing, and this is what the teacher is seeing. So the answers or audio files. So as I said, I presented the content in expandable boxes because I didn't want to overwhelm people with information. Whatever they want to look at, they just click on it, and they have the titles of the exercises here. So this is from the word stress chapter. Exercise 2, listening and marking the stress syllable. So if they click on it, it just opens, they see the content. I also try to add some printable content to this because I know, as far as I know, not all teachers really like printed online materials all the time because they want to be able to highlight and annotate. So for those types of teachers, I thought it would be a good idea to provide a PDF material. So do you guys see the pictures, or do you see a blank screen? Jane said she sees a blank screen. Okay. How many of you, does anybody else have a problem with that? Blank screen? Okay. Sorry, Jane. Probably it will come back in a couple of seconds. It had happened to me before too. So here, when you click here, this thing, you get the PDF form of the teacher's manual. So whatever you see here, stress syllables, exercise 2, exercise 3, you get it in PDF format. So you just print it and you just use it as a PDF, as a printed copy if you like it that way. Also remember that I mentioned that I checked phonetic transcriptions of a lot of words. So I said, okay, if I just provide the phonetic transcription of keywords, meaning the words and exercises, maybe it might be helpful for some teachers because I really liked it. I'm not saying that all teachers will need to see this, but just in case, because remember my point was to support any kind of teacher. It may be experienced teacher, less experienced teacher, doesn't matter. So there's the phonetic transcription. If you hover over the word, you see the phonetic transcription of the word. And this is the warm-up answer key for the warm-up. Also, a lot of teachers mentioned that instructional videos would be helpful, so they would want to see how you explain something, for instance, in pronunciation. So here in this part, this is a chapter explaining N, L, and R sounds. So here in this tab, as you can see, I have an instructional video for each of those sounds, N, L, and R, and perception exercises. So in these videos, the pronunciation expert is explaining how to introduce this sound, for instance, in this case, N, and how it causes problems for certain speakers from certain backgrounds. So in this video, he was mentioning about the Korean or Japanese speakers having difficulties with those sounds. And in the perception exercises, he just shows different types of exercises that teachers can go through to help learners hear those differences. Also, previously, I didn't have captions in my videos, but some teachers said, terminology is really difficult for me, so it would be really helpful if you explain what those mean. And as far as I know from my own experience, and maybe some of you may say it's correct for you too or not, we do not always go to the glossary and check the meanings immediately. But if something is given to us, like as a caption, then we would look at it. So for instance, for people who do not know what alveolar ridge is, then I provided the explanation of alveolar ridge here. So it's not all the time transcription, but it's caption. Thank you, Beata. No, I didn't get funding for this. It's just for my research, and I really thought that this would be fun for me to create since our program is integrating technology too. So that was how I started, but thanks. So here you can see more closely perception exercises, production exercises, and yes, I can share the link. Also, some of the teachers told me that it's really nice to have the videos under certain chapters and units, but some of them said, why don't you have a separate tab on the menu saying the videos? Because she said, maybe I won't want to go into those chapters, but I want to see the videos, all videos together in one tab. So I just created that one here. So if you go to the videos section, for instance, one of the titles says segmentals. So all the segmentals videos you could see on this website, let's say sounds, or how to teach sounds, perception exercises, or a video about consonants, place of articulation. What is that? So that kind of video tab. Audio was one of the things, remember, some of you also mentioned now. Audio is really sometimes annoying if you don't have your computer with you, the one on which you installed the CD, or if you don't really know where the audio is. It's really annoying. So they said, can you make audio available on the website? And that was already available. So if you click on this play symbol, you hear the word. And by the way, this is the students part. So if you click on yes or no, it gives you feedback. It says correct or incorrect. So some teachers like that idea because they said I could use this in class as an interactive exercise. Also, on the phonetic chart, some teachers had mentioned that interactive phonetic chart would be really helpful. So I created this phonetic chart, and it shows that there are clickable words here. Thank you, Joanna. There are clickable words here. So if you click on this, what happens is that it goes to example words, including p sound in the initial, medium, and final position. Also, let's have a closer look. It explains what kind of place of articulation it has, what kind of manner of articulation it has, and once you click on each of these words, one by one, you hear the words being pronounced for you. So there were clickable words and play buttons. So I asked some of these teachers how they like the online teacher's manual. By the way, I provided them both a printed teacher's manual and an online teacher's manual so that I could see, would this be any better? I'm not trying to make it this is better, but I wanted to learn. Would you prefer this, or would you use this? Would it be helpful for you compared to a printed one? And also, I could provide the printed one as well, because as you can see, creating a PDF format documents also makes it possible for them to have printed copy. So, as I said before, I used pronunciation for a purpose, student materials produced by Dr. Levis and Greta Mueller-Levis. And I just asked my teachers to do a pre-use evaluation of 2 prototypical units of the printed and online teacher's manual. And some of you were my participants. You can share your opinions here too. I had only 2 units by then because it really takes a lot of time to produce the material. I had consonants and vowels as a segmental unit, and I had word stress. So I said maybe 1 unit from each so that it would give an idea. The content was the same, but clearly they had different designs. And student material was the same. I shared the student material as a PDF copy with all teachers, but in the online manual, they also had access to the student materials. So if they wanted, they could use that one too. And I shared the URL with the teachers. Just a second to answer a question. Am I a programmer? I'm not a programmer. But as I said, our program is Applied Linguistics and Technology. We learned how to do HTML coding and a little bit JavaScript. I learned myself and styling. So I produced this, but I can definitely say that I started to learn how to make such a stuff 3 years ago because my first idea was to create an ebook, which didn't really work well, for feedback function because I wanted to provide feedback to students as well. Then I just moved on to HTML. So Iowa State technological courses helped a lot about that. Sometimes it's hard to sleep a lot, Dr. Rimmer, but yes. But I like it. I really like it. So I asked teachers what features they like, what features they didn't like, or which one would they prefer. This was my case because I didn't share a lot of research-based stuff with you here, so because it's a different type of audience, different environment, but you probably can read about this in the near future in my dissertation research. So teachers talked about different features of online and printed manual. A lot of teachers said layout and design is generally good because they could see the content of the student and teacher manual right next to each other, which they really liked, some of them. And I thought accordion boxes would be maybe problematic for some teachers, but most of them said, no, this is fine. We could figure it out. It's easy to use. Presentation of information, mostly they liked. Sometimes there were a lot of text on the introductory page, so some teachers said, can you make it little chunks of text as well? They really liked the multimodality because the fact that they can click on the words and hear the words, they really like that feature. Audio and video. One of the non-native English speaking teachers really liked the video function because she said, I am learning from this. Printable PDF. Some of the teachers who really like printed stuff really like this idea. And some teachers said accessibility is better for them because they have the internet access all the time, so they don't need to carry a physical book. If they want, they could even use their smartphones. Of course, you would need to zoom out the screen and make it a little bit smaller, but still it works. It tells you the thing that you need. You can see it. They really like some of them really like the phonetic transcriptions. And one of the teachers said, this is a good self-study source for my students. And I said, well, okay, I didn't produce this really for students at this point, but why not? Because on the manual, if you just close the screen to the left side a little bit, then you don't see the teacher's manual. All you see is the student material. So he said, why do I not use this in class by just limiting it to the student part? So I click on the word, they hear it, they see the feedback. So that kind of thing. With the printed one, some teachers like the printed one better in terms of accessibility because they said this is more accessible because there is sometimes power outage here in the area that I live, or sometimes I forget the power cord at home, or who knows, something happens. This is technology. So they thought printed material is more accessible, more reliable. But you know what? In those cases, I thought maybe you could print your PDF content and keep it with you in the cases that you might be worried that the content is not accessible. Physicality aspect, some people like the physicality aspect of the printed material, and there's nothing that I can do about this, but I like printed materials a lot too, like touching the material, highlighting, annotating. So there's nothing that can replace that feeling, but I can understand. So presentation of rationale or presentation of information, these are actually the same things about the online and printed manual because the content is the same, but it almost felt like some teachers couldn't find something to say about the printed manual, so they just mentioned about the content. So one of the teachers said, I like the accordion boxes. I like the way the information was decorated. One paragraph at a time, you could click on and just read that paragraph. So this is what they liked about it. One of them said, a non-native English speaking teacher said, small window of content, so less overwhelming presentation of information. This is what she liked about it. And one of the native English speaking teachers, actually, who's a participant right now, said, it's not that I'll choose the online manual or the printed stuff. It's purely, obviously, the audio is online. So for this teacher, it was only the online audio part that she liked a lot. Another teacher said, it's amazing being able to just click anywhere. There is an example and you just hear it. Also, a participant that I see who is here right now said, videos are very useful. Ultimately, it's pronunciation, physical over cognitive, so you need to actually demonstrate what's happening. So this was why he liked the videos. Also, another native English speaking teacher said, not everybody likes to read text. It's helpful to hear someone explain it. And another teacher, a non-native English speaking teacher, who said, she said, last minute training from a phonetics expert before going into the classroom. So she really liked the instructional videos because she was like, okay, I watched the expert and I see how he explains it and I do it myself too, more confidently. So maybe it might be helpful for novice teachers to learn how to do this kind of stuff, and they develop their own styles in time. So I'm not saying that you should imitate the people in these videos or you should imitate this style. I don't mean that at all. But having some guidance, having someone showing a way in your first time, or even if not, as one of the native English speaking teachers mentioned before, if they think that this video could be used in class for students, they could even use it by themselves from scratch. So they mentioned a lot of things to improve as well, and I'll share a couple of them with you. They said, we need more explicit explanation for some of those exercises, because in some exercises, especially variation in consonants and vowels, there is a part in which the exercise says, it's okay, either way you say. You can say this way, that way, or other way, because there are lots of different people saying in different ways. So there's no correct answer, absolute correct answer for this exercise. But one of the native English speaking teachers said, I understand that there is no correct answer, but new teachers may be a little bit prescriptive. I really think some answers would be helpful. So this was my point too when I looked at that exercise more critically after the comment of this teacher. I said, yes, I can see the point as well, but can you just say something to help the teachers? What do I say if students say, how come everything is okay? Everything is true. How can I explain that? How can I talk about that? So this was what they expected. And as Dr. Rimmer says, yes, how often does intonation have only one answer? It doesn't really. So it's really hard to give guidance on this kind of stuff. But what this teacher meant just say something to help teachers. What do I say to my students if there's no correct answer? How do I say this? Because a lot of teachers, and this happened to me as well when I was teaching native English speaking students for linguistic classes, sometimes they lose their confidence in their teacher, thinking that, especially if that's a non-native English speaking teacher, can I really trust her? Is she telling the truth? So how do I convince the learners in such a situation? You can share your opinions at this point, because this happened to me before. Like sometimes it was really hard to convince my students that I was right, because they mostly agreed that they were right. And since they are native speakers, it was a kind of discussion between us. So this is very challenging sometimes. To improve was teacher training component in the videos, because they said, okay, the instructional videos are really useful, but can you also add some demonstration? Like demonstrate the activities. Let's say this is a rubber band activity that you use for words with me. So how can I do things? So there are other things that they mentioned that I needed to improve, like adding icons, which I did, or providing less text or other things. So I'm working on those. The feedback of the teachers were really helpful, and I'm really thankful to all participants who gave me their opinions. It's really useful. They saw a lot of things that I couldn't see. So if we need to wrap up the situation of teacher manuals, they're not really usually used, and they're not well-used resources. Sometimes not very well designed. So when I look at for well-designed teacher manuals, I find a couple of them, but not all of them. So maybe we need more well-designed teacher manuals helping us. Dr. Gilbert says, if the focus on intonation is on emphasizing the most important word, teacher can be confident about which is the correct answer of a pair of sentences with different emphasis. So in those cases, the guidance based on the exercise may be given. So what I believe from my own research perspective, interaction of the online teacher's manual with the student's book may offer some professional development for all of us. And to me, it's more accessible and immediately useful, because we discussed about this with my major professor and other friends before. Sometimes you're not sure about something during the class, and looking at the teacher's manual, opening it, it just makes you lose your face or credibility, because everybody sees that you're looking at the teacher's manual. But having something like this online, you could even look at it from your phone, or you could hide the teacher's manual part. So it's taken less attention, but it's given you immediate help. So that kind of thing would be helpful for me, honestly, sometimes. So we're not saying that teachers should be dependent on the manual, but whenever they need, they should be able to find some help, some support. So immediately useful, accessible thing. If you ask about the improvement of my project right now, as I said before, when I was doing my first research study, I only had vowels and consonants and word stress in my material. Right now I have NLR sounds, B, P, F sounds, word stress, sentence focus, final intonation, and non-final intonation. And the reason that I included sentence focus, final intonation, and non-final intonation was that a lot of teachers mentioned that they had difficulties with. I not have the other features yet, because it takes a lot of time to develop this material, and I'm getting there slowly, one by one. But what I want to do is just to see if these ones work. Is it worthwhile to invest time on something like this? Should I do this? So yes, final, non-final intonation, when you do not end your sentence, you're going on your expression. So you would see it on the materials if you look at them, and I can share the link with you later on. So I'm at this point. I am here with these materials right now, and I actually need help from you. If you think that you would love to help me with this research, and if you think that you would want to try teaching with these materials and use my online manual, please let me know, email me, so that I can share my materials with you. And they will all be completely done at the end of this month, so in 9 days or so. And I would really appreciate your further feedback. Because in my previous research, I wanted teachers to look at the materials and to tell me what they think. So they didn't really use the materials, and I only had 2 units, which was not really enough. Right now I have 6, but I need teachers trying to teach with these materials so that I can see whether it really helps or not. Is it really helpful? Am I on the right track or not? So this is for teachers. If you try out these materials, what I'll do, I'll send you the student materials in PDF. Also, you'll have the student materials on the online teacher's manual, and I'll give you the access so that you can use those, whatever unit you want to teach in your class, and share your opinions with me. So this is what I did. Questions and comments now before we can go ahead. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. So Maria, it's not for self-study for students, but some teachers said that they could use it that way. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you so much. I recorded the presentation by QuickTime, and I believe it's being recorded by Adobe as well, so we'll try to share it with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Coldwell. Well, feel free to send your questions to me as well, and I will be very happy, honestly, if you would be willing to try these materials out. You'll help me a lot. Thank you, Dr. Hancock, for great materials as well that you produced. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the chance to share this research with you guys, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Dr. Rimmer. This was really great for me too. Bye. Have a good day, everyone.